Right. So summarizing Emma. So I just finished the book recently, and I've got to say I'm not a big fan. I think the book's like pretty boring. So like, but we'll get into it. So basically, what the book's about is it's about this girl Emma, who's the main character, and she's sort of different to all the other characters in the like Austen collection in that she's extremely unlikable from the onset. Like her whole point is to be unlikable. So it starts the book, and it starts with Emma. It starts with Jane Austen writing. Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever, and rich, with a comfortable home and a happy disposition, seemed to unite some of the best blessings of existence, and had lived nearly 21 years in the world with very little to stress or vex her. So from the onset, we can already tell that Emma's basically a spoiled brat, and so it sets up a whole story of basically Emma just being annoying. So at the start, what happens is Emma tries to set up this relationship between her best friend Harriet Smith, and this a local vicar, and called Mr. Elton. So she tries to do this, although there's this guy, Robert Martin, who already likes Harriet, and Harriet likes him. And then Emma manages to convince her out of it because she basically just tells him, it's like, "Oh, Robert Martin's not for you. Mr. Elton's the real person for you." But then it all falls through because it turns out that Mr. Elton doesn't even like Harriet. It turns out Mr. Elton only pretended to like Harriet to get closer to Emma, which is just like, I mean, and throughout this whole thing, there's this character, Mr. Knightley, who's sort of like a uncle kind of figure to Emma, which is kind of strange in this series of events that follows. But Mr. Knightley is there the whole time, and basically he's like the voice of reason, and he's there and he says, like, guys, this is stupid. Robert Mann is pretty good for Harriet, so I don't know, what's going on, and he openly tells her, she's like, I think you two shouldn't, Harriet and you, it's not a good influence. Like this is not right. You guys are not a good pair. So basically, that whole thing happens. And then the book proceeds with sort of all the things and all the small things that happen in Highbury and Hartfield. So that's like the sort of small kind of like a circle that these people inhabit. It's the small, aristocratic, wealthy circle, which I guess is sort of defines all of Jane Austen's books, not just Emma. Like, I guess you could say the same about Pride and Prejudice and stuff, where it's just balls and picnics and all the whole sort. But anyways, so the book continues, and um, Emma continues to try set up relationships, but then she basically just like gives up. She's like, I'm terrible at this. This does not work out. The whole Mr. Elton thing. She's like, this is not good. So basically, what happens is then Mr. Elton he gets engaged to another woman, and then so they all kind of bicker on about it. Nothing really happens in the book. The book's mainly just like them talking about oh, like preparing for this and stuff like that, and everyone's opinions of one another. Like there's this character called Jane Fairfax, who's like this really likable character. Um, so basically, what happens is that there's this guy Frank Churchill who Emma falls in love with. So Emma falls in love with Frank Churchill. He's this like little wealthy boy. Oh, not wealthy boy. He's unwealthy. Sorry. He's he's of lower status than Emma, and so she falls in love with him. Although at the time, he doesn't know, and she also doesn't know that he's already engaged to Jane Fairfax. So they have this whole kind of thing, like back and forth. Emma doesn't like Jane Fairfax because she thinks, oh, she might have a thing with Frank, and also because she just in general doesn't like her. And this is also where lots of Jane Austen's sort of like techniques and where lots of Jane Austen's kind of specialties come out with her free and direct discourse. Because lots of it is just the narrator, the narrator, and like Emma's voice start blending together. So normally, if it was first person, you'd be saying like Emma's, it'd be like, oh, I think, Jane Fairfax is horrible, or blah blah blah. Or if it was third person, it'd be like Emma, like Emma didn't like Jane Fairfax or so blah blah blah. But then the two voices blend together, and it sort of becomes this like unattributive mess where you'll see like a line, and it'll be like, oh, this is actually attributed to this person, not this person. Um, like this is actually like it'll sound like it's the narrator, but it's actually voicing Emma's thoughts. So Emma sort of controls the whole narrative, even though you're not always listening to her. Sometimes you're listening to the narrator. So yeah, so there's that whole back and forth thing with Frank Churchill and Emma, and they do this whole thing. And also during this whole time, Emma also has to take care of her ailing father, Mr. Woodhouse, who's rich, but he's also in horrible condition. He like needs constant care. Emma basically can't like go get away from him because she has to take care of him at all times because he's frail and weak and everything, all that. So basically, anyways, so what happens? Yeah, so right, I should have done some sort of planning when I did this, but basically, I mean, that's what happens. And at the really end of the book, what happens is, Mr. Knightley. I'm losing a lot of subtlety, but basically, what happens is, Harriet professes her love for Mr. Knightley, who's been this sort of overwatching force this whole time, right? Emma sees him; it's kind of like an uncle, and there's no sort of romantic kind of feelings during the whole book. But then Harriet professes her love for Mr. Knightley because she's been sort of professing her love for like during this whole book. She's been in this like daze of Emma trying to converse her to fall in love with these people and her not actually liking these people. And then it's just this like whole thing. But basically, what happens is at the really end of the book, Mr. Knightley. So Harriet says she likes Mr. Knightley. And then Emma realizes that she's liked Mr. Knightley all along. And then she gets jealous and she like starts hating Harriet. Even though Emma's been messing with Harriet's like romantic life this whole book. Like 500 pages. It's just basically Emma messing with Harriet and like messing up Harriet's love life. And so basically, what happens after that is Emma realizes she's in love with Miss Knightley, even though they have this weird, like uncle, like niece kind of relationship. Like it's really weird. Or like they're cousins, but it's just like it's yeah. So she realizes, and then she basically she like, uh, and then she realizes Mr. Knightley likes her at the really end of the book, and so basically what happens is at the really end of the book, Mr. Knightley and Emma get together, and it's like what, like you know, like, I don't, yeah, and it's just, and then it turns out Harriet also gets with Robert Martin at the really end of the book, so then it's like because it turns out that Harriet's sort of always had feelings for Robert Martin, and Robert Martin has still maintained feelings for Harriet even though he was rejected. And then so Mr. Elton and Mrs. Elton are good because he gets married again to another woman. And then basically all the relationships and Frank Churchill gets with Jane Fairfax and then he like says, "Oh, sorry, Emma. Like I didn't mean to mislead you, but I really couldn't say that I was in love with Jane Fairfax. So, I didn't mean to mislead you, but that's just the way things are." And he sends this big letter. It's like, "I'm sorry," and then basically everything works out. So it's just this whole book of sort of these characters interweaving with one another, these relationships, and like everyone's sort of on their toes. And yeah, it's I don't know. I think I'd review the book as like a maybe I don't know, it's like a 6 out of 10. I didn't like it. It's I mean, depending on the reader, for me personally, I think lots of Austen's works can be uh sort of on the duller side if you're not really interested in that sort of like in this thematic matter of what she talks about. And for Emma, the story itself's not particularly interesting. It's more about Austen's use of free and direct style and the sort of like use of like the intricacies and like of these like relationships and like using humor because there's also lots of humor. But yeah, check it out if you want. And hey, and if you're not subscribed already, like subscribe. Yeah, yeah.